Nicole thought this would be the perfect day. She had no idea what was coming. David was getting ready downstairs, completely unaware his world would soon shatter completely. Meanwhile, Jake the best man was making a decision that would destroy everything forever. The ceremony was absolutely perfect. Nicole felt like the luckiest woman on earth. At the reception, everyone was celebrating, laughing, dancing, completely oblivious to what was coming. Then the moment arrived for speeches. Nicole was excited to hear Jake's words. Jake stood up slowly. His hands were shaking as he reached for the microphone. He started normally, talking about friendship, loyalty, and trust between best friends forever. Nicole was smiling warmly, completely relaxed, trusting, expecting sweet stories about her husband. David was beaming with pride, completely confident in his best friend's words of support. Then Jake's voice changed, and he said something that made everyone's blood run cold. He revealed David's secret affair in explicit detail, with dates and locations included. Nicole's face went completely white, as every word hit her like a physical blow. David jumped up frantically, trying to grab the microphone and stop the devastating truth. The entire reception fell into stunned silence. Nobody could believe what they were hearing. But Jake wasn't finished. He revealed the affair had been going on for months. Nicole's mind was racing, suddenly remembering all the lies and excuses that made sense. I had to pause here. Can you imagine finding out this way? On your wedding day? Jake revealed the other woman's name, and Nicole recognized it immediately with horror. It was her own sister, the maid of honor standing right next to her. Sarah's face said everything. The guilt was written all over her trembling features. Nicole was betrayed by both her husband and her own sister on her wedding day. Jake finished his speech with one final devastating blow that left everyone absolutely speechless. He revealed that Sarah was pregnant with David's baby, due in 6 months exactly. The entire reception hall was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop perfectly. Nicole slowly stood up, her wedding dress feeling like a mockery of everything sacred. She walked toward the exit, every step echoing in the absolutely silent room. David called her name desperately, but she didn't turn around or acknowledge him once. Nicole reached the doors and walked out of her wedding reception and old life. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. What Nicole did next shocked everyone completely. But Marcus wasn't done. He had saved the worst revelation for last. Nicole's heart was pounding so loud, she thought everyone could hear it. Marcus looked directly at Nicole and said, "Remember last Thursday night?" The entire reception fell into complete and total, deafening silence. David looked between his best friend and his wife, completely lost. Marcus smiled coldly and continued, "When you called me crying about David." You could see the realization dawning on every single face in the room. Nicole shot up from her chair and tried to stop him speaking. But Marcus raised his hand and said, "Let me finish this story." Marcus continued, "She was sobbing about how she didn't love you anymore." David's face went completely white, like all the blood just drained away. I have to pause here because the absolute audacity of doing this. At someone's wedding, this man chose absolute violence, and I'm here for it. But wait, because Marcus still wasn't finished destroying her completely. Nicole was frantically shaking her head and mouthing, "Please stop, please stop." Then Marcus said the words that shattered everything. "She told me about Jake." Half the wedding guests turned to look at Jake sitting at table 7. Jake looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and disappear forever. David slowly turned to look at Jake, and understanding flooded his face. Marcus leaned into the microphone and said, 6 months every Tuesday afternoon." Nicole finally broke down completely, sobbing into her hands at her own wedding. The wedding reception had become a courtroom, and Nicole was being sentenced. David slowly stood up from the head table, his wedding ring catching the light. Marcus looked at David and said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Marcus set the microphone down and walked away from the wreckage he'd created. That's when the whispers started, spreading like wildfire through the reception. David looked down at his wedding ring and slowly started to remove it. Nicole reached out desperately toward David, but he stepped back from her touch. And just like that, the wedding was over before it had even really begun. This is where Nicole could have accepted defeat and disappeared. But that's not what happened. Nicole grabbed Marcus's arm, her nails digging in. "We need to leave now." But Marcus stepped back, his eyes cold. The man she married was gone. Around them, wedding guests whispered and stared. The damage was already done completely. Jake watched from across the room, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips slowly. Nicole's voice cracked as she tried to explain, but Marcus wouldn't even look. Sarah, the bride, finally broke down completely. Her perfect day was absolutely ruined. Marcus turned and walked toward the exit. Each step echoed like thunder. Nicole ran after him in her heels, stumbling. "Marcus, please wait, let me explain." In the parking lot, Marcus finally stopped, but his silence was absolutely deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly calm. "How long, Nicole?" Nicole tried to lie again, but the words, they just wouldn't come out. 6 months, she finally whispered. The truth hung between them like poison. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just pure, devastating pain. He looked down at his wedding ring. 3 years of marriage, all a lie. "It didn't mean anything," Nicole cried desperately. But they both knew better. Marcus wiped his eyes and straightened his tie. His composure was absolutely terrifying. "Don't come home tonight," he said quietly. His voice was ice-cold and final. Nicole realized then that she'd lost everything. Her marriage was completely over. I had to pause here. The audacity of Nicole, thinking she could explain away betrayal. 6 months, while Marcus was planning their anniversary. She was with Jake. Can you imagine finding out this way? At your friend's wedding, no less. Marcus got in his car without looking back. The engine roared to life. Nicole stood there in her formal dress, completely alone. Her phone started buzzing. It was Jake! Even now, he couldn't leave her alone completely. She answered with shaking hands. "What do you want?" Her voice was broken. Jake's voice was smooth, calculated. He offered her a place to stay tonight. "You planned this," she whispered in horror. The wedding speech was no accident. Jake laughed softly on the other end. He'd orchestrated her entire destruction carefully. Nicole threw her phone to the ground. It shattered like her entire life. But here's where it gets insane. Nicole was about to discover something worse. Nicole's face went completely white as she stared at the phone screen. Every single person at that wedding reception was now staring at her. Marcus knew exactly what she had found, and he was terrified. She slowly stood up from her chair, phone still in her hand. The entire reception fell into complete and total silence watching her. Nicole took a deep breath and looked directly at her husband. Then she spoke the words that would change everything between them forever. Marcus literally collapsed back into his chair, completely defeated. "I cannot believe the audacity of this man right now. To have your secrets exposed at your own wedding reception?" But what Nicole does next? Pure savage energy. She didn't just call him out. She exposed everything. 300 wedding guests all gasped at the exact same moment. Marcus couldn't even look at her, or anyone else. Jake realized his speech had just destroyed his best friend's marriage. But Nicole wasn't finished. Not even close to finished. She pulled out the divorce papers she'd hidden in her purse. The entire reception erupted into chaos. Absolute complete chaos. Marcus sat there in complete shock, his world crumbling around him. Nicole turned and walked out, head held high like a queen. The wedding reception that was supposed to celebrate love ended everything. 6 months later, Nicole was living her absolute best life. She got the house, half his assets, and most importantly, her freedom. Marcus, he lost everything that actually mattered to him. And Jake, he's still carrying the guilt of that speech. Sometimes the truth comes out in the most unexpected ways possible. That best man speech saved Nicole from a lifetime of lies. Sometimes what feels like your worst moment is actually your salvation. If this story shocked you, wait until you hear what happened next. Follow for part 2, where Nicole gets the ultimate revenge.